Hello, projectors. Good to have you here. I'm so excited to be joined by my lovely friend and what feels like sister, Lisa Jacobson. Welcome.
Thank you.
I can share in the human design family. We both are splenic, and oftentimes we just receive in the moment what feels important to share and what's alive in the collective within the projector field and aura. And today we are going to dive into the eclipse portal that we've been in and how that is impacting us as projectors, and not how is it impacting us only, but how we can use the medicine of this eclipse in Libra to ultimately transform and come into better alignment with the relationships we have with ourselves, and then from that place out to other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More harmony, more justice. Yeah.
Yeah. More
Yeah.
balance within self.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's take a few moments, like we always do, to just ground and close our eyes if you're in a space to do that. The eclipse time can really bring so much impact and sometimes jarring impact into our lives to force us to see certain things, patterns, beliefs. And as we said, this has been a lot about relationships. And so taking this time to just steady ourselves, feel your feet on the floor, breathing fresh breath into your body, fresh oxygen. In this moment, I invite you to connect to your heart space and see if you can, within your own internal space of the heart, soften just 10% more. Calling in the energetics of compassion and kindness and tenderness to ourselves. Maybe even placing a gentle smile over your heart space, not to cover over anything, but just to remind ourselves that this presence is also here when we remember it. Coming back into the space, see if you can stay, just even 10% connected to your heart, if that's available as we proceed into these times that we're in, that we find ourselves in as projectors who are so impacted by, we're so impacted by astrology, let alone this new moon partial solar eclipse that's coming up on the 2nd, and that we've been in this eclipse portal for since September 25th, I believe is the date. So we've been in it.
Yep, we have been in it. And I think we feel the effects of the moon, and we also feel the effects of the people feeling the effects too. So we get all the effects. We
And
get all
it
the effects. We get the effects
totally,
ourselves, the moon, the people feeling the effects, our family feeling the effects, everyone.
everyone's with big feelings and getting, eclipses can bring in confusion or just fear, or if things don't make sense, that's okay right now. Just allow ourselves to be, tenderness and softness through this process of what is the birthing of a new consciousness on our planet. That's really what's happening on a bigger level, which is why I think these events are even exacerbating us the way that they are, because they're pushing us towards a new way of being that projectors are here to steward, to
Totally.
guide.
And I think it's a way of being with a stronger sense of self,
Mm,
maybe even. I think that helps to not be to get into the codependent dynamic as much when we can know who we are and know that we are validated for what we feel, and we can recognize ourselves and not be attached to the stories that we might have been formed as
mm,
kids when we weren't recognized and what that might mean.
totally. And, as you're saying that, I'm like, how do we know who we are when we've been in this culture with, in a sense, these us projectors are stewarding what projector even means because we have language for it now. And it's also the time of this change where projectors are, coming into being guides. So like, so much of it's like, well, I don't even know what need I have. And then I get into relationships like wanting, maybe, I say this often, projectors were naturally codependent because our open sacral, that's how our dynamic of projector works is through with another person. But we go through life without having any of our projector needs met growing up. And then we're still in life first learning how to meet them ourselves and then how to communicate that in relationship dynamics that aren't used to people being like, I actually can't make it today. I'm sorry, I have to cancel. My spleen said no. you
Mhm.
know?
Maybe before we know who we are, we know when we're not who we are, and we
Totally.
doing that, and we allow ourselves to be in that space in between. And that in that space, I think, is when the trust, we really have to have the trust and the self-compassion and the self-love, because there's a lot of not knowing sometimes before there's a knowing.
Oh, I think that's the walk of the projector path. And ultimately, I think the path if we're being guided back home or to a new consciousness is faith and trust and walking to the places where you feel scared, knowing that on the other side of that is the greatest expansion, you know?
Right. Yes.
And I would say, the theme of
That's
this, oh,
unfolding.
sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Just the process of unfolding, which is the most natural thing. It's what nature does, is unfold in a process. And we were talking about perfection earlier. I think
Yeah.
process is the antithesis of perfection. If we can be better in process,
Mm.
then maybe we're not so concerned with being in perfection.
Mm. I love that because projectors, we talk about what the projector movement often talks about, like what is the essence of a projector? What are the qualities, And one of the qualities we say is the quality of being in awe. Being in awe reminds me of being in the process versus destination, destination, destination. And so much of the projector essence is timelessness. It's spacious. It's allowing. It's like finding, what's right here. Be here now. This essence and maybe if projectors who are going through similar kind of lessons or awakenings or whatever we want to call this process of the eclipse are starting to see that there's a struggle being here now. There's a struggle with I'm attached to, some sort of control, or we were talking about perfectionism. There's so many projectors that are attached to having to do something to feel good about themselves externally, transactionally, not I feel good rolling in the dirt and looking at a ladybug, that's
I
just
can just be,
amazing.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
right. Well, because there's a lot of deconditioning, unlearning, undoing,
Hmm.
shedding that has to happen
Yeah.
for us to get more comfortable there. But that is where our essence is.
Mhm. That is where life actually is.
Life
Life
is
is, or else we're, meant.
everything. Mhm. But I do think a lot of times if we weren't attuned to as kids, and a lot of us weren't as projectors, then we can have this abandonment wound. And I've worked
Mm,
with an abandonment wound for a long time. And I used to think it was when people abandoned me, like if my parents abandoned me and didn't attune to me, that contributed to my abandonment wound.
mhm,
Come to believe that it's really when I had to abandon myself to survive a situation is when the
mhm.
So it never was about the other people. It was when I had to abandon myself. And so to me, this eclipse energy is about no longer having to abandon ourselves so that we are not in positions where we don't feel seen, where we don't feel validated, where we don't feel recognized.
100%. I think I mean, we could do a whole thing on the abandonment wound in projectors because there is that invisible wound of not being met and then having to leave yourself to meet your parents, what they were trying to make you be and look and fit into the mold. The initial abandonment was, I'm not safe to be myself. And then we go in life, fearing abandonment and carrying this wound, which, I think many of us have. And I was doing work within it. It's like, oh, you know what? Like, I know I'm in my child self in that wound because an adult can't be abandoned.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like,
absolutely. Yes.
when I'm in this fear or when it's in a relational dynamic, which could be looked at right now, is when we have this fear and this control and this, you know, mind that's going and going and going, being or doing all these things in relationship, fixing, criticizing, being perfect, accomplishing, not just allowing, could be literally driven from this fear that if I don't perform, then I'm not going to be safe because my parents are going to leave me. Essentially, it's really down to that.
That's like a core fear. If you
Yeah,
get down to all the fears, that's it.
totally,
I'm
totally,
alone. There's no one to
totally.
take me. And the reality is, we kind of are alone,
Hmm.
but we're all connected. We're all of it. And
Hmm.
me with our essence, we also, as projectors in this feminine, allowing, flexible energy, can make room for all of it.
Hmm.
We can make room for all of it.
Hmm.
Yes, we are alone and no one's coming to save us. And we are connected to something so much bigger than us. And we have everything we need in every moment. So aloneness isn't even a lack.
Totally. And now maybe this is a bit like sarcastic, but like with all the different parts of ourselves, like, are we really alone? Like, is there one voice there? You know what I mean?
There's
Like,
that too. Yes.
I have this version of myself that shows up sometimes, and then there's this one over here, and then there's this one. But in a sense, like, I'm always in relationship to myself. And with that relationship, what I think you and I were just expressing that feels so real to the calling of this projector walk is like, how much kindness and compassion can I give to myself throughout this journey and the walk of life? How much more space? Because you're right, I have goosebumps in saying this. There is room and space for it all. So
All.
when I'm in all these different versions of myself, can I give myself kindness and compassion? Can I be that soft voice? And so many projectors have such harsh voices because we've believed something was wrong with us from a pre-verbal state. It's an imprint. And like, I was sharing with you just a bit ago, when I got on my conscious healing journey and started in 2012, I feel like it's been my whole life. But when I was moved into the languaging of it all, I was on a fast track of like, let's go, let's heal, let's go, let's heal, let's go, let's heal. And now I'm like, let's soften.
Yes, it's
Let's
like a lazy
soften.
river of healing, rather than like
Mm-hmm.
rapids that you'll get through when you're no,
Yeah.
just soften because
Yeah.
it's just experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all experience to help us remember to trust in the
Mm-hmm.
connection
Mm-hmm.
and to be okay not having answers or words or
Yeah.
physical
I'll
reality.
say something, that feels true to me and it could be polarizing, but part of what I feel is happening, and many projectors, I think you can relate to this because we do have these sixth sense, seventh sense, eighth sense, whatever sense you want to call it. We have these otherworldly, what's considered otherworldly powers, and where people are going through, spiritual activations, and we projectors actually can go through a lot of them because of how open we are. And I believe life is pushing us back toward relationship to realize we're never alone because we are a part of something that we can never be rejected from. And we can call that God. And I say the word God for me, but it's not the God that was written in any book. It's a totally different relationship to, and you can call it the universe, creation, whatever. But we are a part of something for forever. And yes, the ego doesn't carry on. Yes, the physical body transmutes. But if we can, people that are having all these, other worldly experiences, starting to open up this window of like, there's something else out there. And when we have a relationship to the truth of that, however it makes sense to you, and it's going to be different for you, and it's you within yourself have the power to connect. You don't need dogma. You don't need a guru.
You don't need to be who you aren't. You can
Yes.
totally be who you are.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. You don't have to put on a mask.
Yeah.
You have to change to be, so that people will like you. You can trust that you are enough. You're perfect in
Mm-hmm.
your divine creation. You have everything you need.
Totally.
The moments when we forget that is really just the practice to
Yeah.
remember that. And it's kind of, I think of it as like inhaling and exhaling. We're not always going to remember. So we're going to have those moments where we forget so that we
Yeah.
can remember again.
Totally.
It's just a dance.
Totally. Totally. With all of the experience that I had, that I'm like 100% certain, I have just as many still where I question, and that's where trust comes. That's what trust is.
What trust
We are
is.
limited humans that don't have all the answers, but the more that I, walk in the path of opening up to synchronicity and life, that there is this invisible thing, that to me comfortably I call God, but that doesn't need to have that name because it has so much to it anyways. But that when you sync up to that, when you see that nature is talking to us, when you see that we're in relationship all the time, this notion of loneliness can disappear.
Right. Well, loneliness too. I mean, it's a feeling, but it's also a story. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think we've got to be better at untethering from those stories that we might believe about ourselves
Mm-hmm.
because of just being so different in a
Mm-hmm.
generator world. They're just stories.
Totally.
Really good at identifying the stories.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
some practical things. So because we're in this relational Libra eclipse, and for projectors, what we want to infuse as possibility or invitation to you during this time um, is a way that you don't abandon yourself in relationship. And we're moving from Aries is the first, it's the baby of the chart, it's all about me. And then there's the Libra, that's all about we and balance and fairness. And how do we projectors, because we weren't we've been in relationships often very self-sacrificial, or not being able to just say, hey, I know I said I meet you for coffee, but I really can't anymore, and not have this guilt. And how do we navigate relationships where we're considering the other, we're still caring,
Okay,
but we
so my
also care
is,
for us.
don't think you're not going to have the guilt. You are absolutely going to have the guilt because it's like working out a muscle that you've never worked out before. So
Yes,
you're
starting, you will for sure,
it's
for
like
sure.
passion that comes with the guilt.
No, for sure.
I
But I guess the intention is that we slowly begin to stop feeling guilty for expressing what our needs are, that they're unique, that the people that we choose, and that's another big thing in this time portal, is like, maybe relationships that don't really respect your uniqueness are being asked to be let go of, and trust it, even if it's wild or crazy, trust that there's an energetic misalignment for your soul. And so
and that's
my
okay.
go ahead.
Well, just and that's okay. So many times people think that they're the ones being judgmental.
Mm,
They're just being discerning that that friend's not right for them anymore, that friend group's not right for them. But something you say about vibration, Sarah, made me think the other day that there's a vibrational difference between discernment and judgment.
mm-hmm.
Judgment has a heavier vibration to me than just discernment of just, okay, those aren't my people. I'm not necessarily saying what they're doing is bad. They're not my people. And so just
Totally.
allowing yourself room for discernment, because that's so
Mm.
key in this interdependent dynamic of relationship and authentic relating.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of moving from the Aries to the Libra, is to have discernment, because discernment is, I love what you just said. Yeah, it's not coming with, you know, you're not okay as you. It's just being like, what is I'm discerning what is appropriate and best for me.
Right. Right. Like if
Yeah.
everything's a buffet, you're just saying, I don't want
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah. And
okay.
that's amazing that you do. And that's why, we're moving towards a culture that's more individuated. So
Right.
that would make sense.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I think for projectors, beginning to have honest conversations with your close loved ones, friends, and letting them know what your unique needs are, that you're not, some common ones like going to a family event, maybe you can go for 2 hours, maybe you go for an hour, these sorts of things. Or me being splenic, my close friends know there's a window that I might not be able to, that I just don't make it, and sometimes do I self-sacrifice? Yeah, I still do,
Right. But then
there's
it's a
just
choice.
not perfect.
Then you know
Yeah,
your pattern,
totally,
you're making a choice.
totally,
You have agency and it's
totally, totally. And I think that's the like what I love about the Libra, not biased because I'm a Libra, Charlie's a Libra, but
I'm Libra.
you're Libra rising, okay, is what I think is important. And we're actually going to go into this in this month's community. One of the themes is the projector shadow, the projector ego, is that we also can become, it's very easy for us to be completely self-absorbed as well because our needs haven't been met.
Yes.
So it's like in relationships, sometimes there is a give and take. Sometimes it's like, okay, I've canceled already. This time, my spleen's saying no, but I really love this human and we're gonna do that. Or, you know, having, you get to decide, but once someone told me once, which I love, it's like, don't do things from a have to, like I have to go. Do things because I care to.
Yes.
Like I
That's a
care to
different vibration too.
such a different, yeah, it's all about, it's honestly, it's
Yeah.
all about vibration. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? And then having that to yourself. I don't have to, I'm a projector. I have to stay at home alone. I have to rest. I have to wait for the invitation versus I care about myself and my design. And because I care, what do I need to do to care for
Right.
me?
Right.
And giving you that nourishment versus, often you can, you know, being a projector, people can feel validated and then also like, well, this sucks. Like,
It's everything all at once.
yeah,
Over
totally,
all of it.
totally,
Everything.
totally.
Yes. Yes, for sure. And I also just want to say, like, I think people should allow themselves room. This might be unpopular opinion,
That's okay.
but for little white lies. Like, if your family's not going to understand,
Mm,
need a break, like, allow yourself that, I have the stomach bug or something. Like, allow yourself what you need to
mm,
take care of yourself. Because I think at this point, and especially with the eclipse energy and the interdependent, that is actually more important,
mm-hmm.
not being honest with someone because you're going against what you need.
Yeah, totally. I think in the interim, it's like prioritizing the need and like what actually needs to take place. And if there's a
Like,
sidestep in this moment to make that happen, forgive me. And that's what needs to
everybody's
happen.
not going to
Yeah,
understand.
they're not. They're not. And that doesn't mean they're not loving humans. It's just everyone's wired differently.
Right.
But I want to, as we conclude, I do want to say this because you were talking about, like the discernment versus the judgment, or the I have to versus I care to. And I think, what came through for me during this eclipse portal, and we've talked about it a bunch, is owning that we're both, owning the polarity of the Aries. I am selfish and I do care about everyone else, and not
Yes.
trying to just be like, no, I am, one or the other, because that's where the shadow begins to start to get louder. Is like, no, there are times I am going to be more selfish, lean on the Aries. And I also want to infuse in care when I can and thought of the other person. And so owning in our relationships, it's when I choose to believe I'm nothing that I probably really need to look at what I'm saying I'm not more closely, because it's just an unintegrated part. And when in our relationships, the more that we can carve out the courage, the compassion, and the understanding for our whole selves, we can offer that to the people we're in relationship with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it's sustainable. And
Mhm.
I love that. That
Yeah,
feels sustainable. It doesn't feel depleting.
totally. Totally. Yeah, this is, I hope Charlie, she's not going to get mad for me sharing this, but we were having a joke in the car because we're like talking about our, like what are our lessons, in this eclipse or what's coming through. And, we're the, you know, projectors who are the quickest to point out the other, like you're really in your ego. You're in your ego. And I was like, what if our eclipse lesson is to actually assume my ego is actually a little bit bigger than yours. And therefore, oh, look,
Got the thumbs up.
thumbs up. Like, so I just walk always a little bit softer. So I just have that level of awareness instead of thinking, okay, I know I have one, but look, yours is bigger. So like you do something over there and I'm like, can still sit pretty over here. It's like, and the whole energetic of the dynamic was like, it changed. It's like, oh, wait, no, like, oh, I'll take accountability first. Or it was just a softening in the space
Well, I
instead
felt
of,
that tenderness when you said that.
yeah, yeah. And because then Charlie, it's like, is that an egoic thing to be like, oh, my ego's bigger than yours? I'm like, yeah, we could play that game. But and I just said, no, I think it's the essence of humility in a relationship. It's the essence of like, I know I have my things too, instead of let me just, and in projectors, we're really good at seeing it in the other ones and feeling victims in life and being like, you're doing this to me. You have even what you said at the beginning, like you abandoned me. It's like, well, no, I probably left myself first, you know, you
Mhm.
know? And it doesn't mean that there weren't a lot of traumas and things that happened to us by other people. I don't want to minimize that, but I think the more that we can own our imperfections, the more that we can own our humanness, the more that we actually find what we were talking about, which is this realm of infinity, which is this realm of connection to everything, to
Abundance
all of us.
to
Yeah,
life.
to
It's
life.
to life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
Oh,
To
Lisa, it's so good. To life.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. To this life, to this human body life, not to
Exactly.
transcend it, to be
Right. Not
here.
yes, right now in all of these
And
imperfections. Because if
yeah,
you write down, have you ever written down I'm perfect?
no, I mean,
Well,
maybe,
yeah, right.
yeah.
If you take the apostrophe out, it's imperfect.
I love that.
We just yeah,
Yeah.
we're all imperfect and that's what
Yeah.
makes it.
That's what makes
Perfect is
us.
wild and free.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, we're moving. We're moving there, and so if you're watching this and it's been rough, or if you're just like I can't, or if all just it feels relentless.
We
I've been
feel
in
it.
waves of that. Yeah, this is not just we're above. Like there are days of that, even on this journey that I've been on for so long. And I know Lisa, it's I can't do this anymore, or like it's not stopping, or I quit.
Up.
I want off this path. And you know, to know that there is also reprieve, and to just keep that heart tender if you can. Take a few breaths, even 1 minute, to just hold your heart softer than you think, and
Right.
breathe. And we're going to get through this together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank
Mm.
you, Sarah.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you all for joining us here. We love doing this. It feels like such an honor to be able to offer support or guidance, or just being silly together in this roller coaster that we're riding. So take
Yeah.
care, everyone. Be well. Bye.